Fox News getting this exclusive look at the day-to-day challenges that these agents continue to face. We are on board for a ride-along. It happened last night with the National Border Patrol Council and a delegation led by House Republican Whip Steve Scalise. All of this as we learn more about the cost of caring for migrant children in U.S. custody. Brand new numbers showing the federal government is now spending at least $60 million a week, John, to house them.
That's a lot of money. We've got team coverage. Arizona Sheriff Mark Daniels met with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas yesterday. The sheriff will join us in just moments.
He's got a lot to say, but we begin with Alex Hogan. She is live on the border in Mission, Texas for us to kick things off. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Sandra. Hi, John. So we just got off a boat with Texas DPS, and of course, we are here with this delegation, 10 congressmen who are here to talk about what they're seeing on the border. We have a live drone that we can give you an aerial view of this part of the country. Right now, we are seeing thousands of migrants. Last month alone, 172,000 people crossed the border into the U.S., 19,000 children. And last night, we were able to go out with Border Patrol, and they showed us the ins and outs of what they see every single day. Of course, all of these congressmen and women were there with us, and we do have a statement from Steve Scalise, who is the House Republican whip, and he says that this is happening every single day. If you're not heartbroken by that, you don't realize the devastating impact that this is having on people, and these stories calling on the president to come down himself. Now, we were out there last night with Border Patrol. Initially, it was dark. We were there for about 3 hours in the middle of the night, and without the lights on, it was pitch black, but we were able to hear people in the forest, in the weeds. We stopped and there was a group. They were actually all strangers who'd banded together for solidarity in numbers. There was a 17-year-old I talked with. He was crying. His whole goal was just to make it to North Carolina to eventually find his mother. He had been traveling for 1 month, taking trains and boats and walking, doing whatever he could. He had scratches all over his body that actually found a 7-year-old girl who was traveling by herself, and they brought her in on their group just to be able to protect her. Eventually, when they got there last night, he asked me, which way is America? He didn't even realize he had made it to U.S. soil. So those were his first steps after arriving here in the U.S. and his first conversations, eventually figuring out that he had made it. Again, a very tearful moment. But this is just the sad reality of what we're seeing here every single day on the border, that these children, they're caught in the crossroads. It's not the politics that they're facing, but it's rather the desire to be with their family. We know that 80% of the cases of children who are in U.S. facilities, they do have at least one relative, and 40% of them, that relative is their parent or guardian. Sandra, John?
Alex, when you go out with Texas DPS on those gunboats, what's their perspective? Obviously, these are state agencies. What's their perspective on how the federal government is dealing with this?
So what we're hearing from them pretty much across the board is people are frustrated. They feel overwhelmed. They thought that February was a lot. Then they thought March was a lot. And now they're seeing even more. So they're excited that people are here, especially some of the congressmen. They're actually holding a presser right now to talk about the issues that they need help with. But on the other hand, they do feel cautiously optimistic, hopeful that something will change, but not certain at this point, because so far what we've seen is just the numbers continue to increase. I will say, however, they've all expressed sadness for these children because they realize these are not kids who are waking up and deciding to do this journey by themselves, but rather being told to do it or thinking based on other people's reaction that they will be able to do this safely. And this is not a safe journey for children. We've seen them arrive with injuries and much worse. So the idea that they can do this trip and be reunited without any danger or violence along the way is not an idea that these agents and DPS are hoping that is continued to be shared.
Quick last question for you, Alex. And by the way, as you were talking, you don't see this anywhere else. Our Fox flight team really giving that overview that drone view of Mission, Texas. We've got these along the border right now. And then there was that look at the border that we got from Steve Scalise leading that delegation last night. Take us a little bit more inside of what we're seeing with these images. He led the delegation in with flashlights. We know that he spoke with a sense of urgency at the number of children in just a matter of minutes. Every few minutes, the number of children that they were seeing, the rafts that were coming over. When Scalise was talking about this, you got this sense of urgency when then he called and railed on the current administration for not getting down there.
Well, you can't look at these images and not picture children that you know, children that are those similar ages, and imagining them do that at the exact same age and do that without any guardianship, any supervision, or any protection out there alone in the woods. Again, there's no street lights in there. The people that we saw, the children, were walking hoping they would run into someone. So eventually they ran into us while we were out there. Again, I think this was an emotional moment for some of the people who were able to see this alongside of us. It's something you can see in video, but experiencing it and having these conversations with people are very devastating, and that's exactly what they felt.
Good stuff. Alex, really appreciate your reporting from there. We'll continue to check back in with you. Thank you.
Alex, thanks. You know, the problems of the border differ depending on what area of the country that you're in. You know, there are similarities across the entire southern border, but, you know, sometimes problem with drug smuggling is bigger in one area. People coming across the border is a bigger problem in some of the other areas. Let's bring in Cochise County, Arizona Sheriff Mark Daniels. A big stretch of his county is right there along the border, just east of Tucson. He met with Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas during his visit to the border yesterday. Sheriff Daniels joins us now. What did you tell the Secretary yesterday, Sheriff Daniels?
Well, hello, John. Hello, Sandra. Thanks for having me again. Myself and a handful of border sheriffs and sheriffs from national and also western sheriffs convened in El Paso, Texas yesterday to speak with Secretary Mayorkas. It was a very candid conversation. It was very passionate driven. And I'll just share with you, there was frustration, to include myself, that was shared with the Secretary for the lack of intervention, the lack of an active plan. And we challenged up the Secretary to work with sheriffs. I asked the Secretary to meet with us once a week, whether that's virtual, in person, or through Zoom, that we need to be working together to solve this. You can't ignore us.
Right. You provided us with some pictures just a little while ago of some of what you're seeing down there. As I mentioned at the top of this, the problems with the border sometimes differ. There are common problems, but you also get different problems depending on which area of the border you're in. This is pictures of drug cartel smugglers.
These are pictures of the cartel smuggling people into the United States. And what's unique on that, John, is the fact that they're outfitted the exact same way, from the water bottles, the blankets, the camouflage boots. They're outfitted before they even enter the U.S. That shows how organized and how coordinated their efforts are. That's smuggling in my county almost a daily basis.
Right. One thing that I was interested to read in just the last few hours is that you were a member of the Homeland Security Advisory Committee. You were appointed back in 2018. You were suddenly removed from that council, as were all of the other members. What's that about?
Well, there were 29 members removed, and this was addressed yesterday, and I won't go into detail. We're in closed doors on this, but I shared my frustration with that. This is a nonpartisan committee that was appointed by different administrations throughout the years since 2002. 29 people, first time ever in history that these HSAC members, Homeland Security Advisory Council members, were removed en masse, even removed. And the only thing I can think of with everything I've seen, and I brought this up, is it's political. It's truly political. And now, in fairness to the Secretary, he's trying to restructure this. Time will tell when this goes forward. He wants to get back into the community with it, which I support 100%. Time will tell with action if that comes true.
Sheriff Daniels, you've been very outspoken about the problems at the border, and your county in particular. Do you think that that had something to do with it?
Well, one could wonder, truly, and that was the first thing that came to my mind. My letter on March 26th, when I received the letter, stated from the Secretary, it was an honor to address you. Second paragraph, it terminated me from my appointment in Washington, D.C. So I thought the application of dismissal was poor. I didn't believe that we're there to help and help this country, not on a political base, but on a public safety base. So yeah, it was One could think that and conclude that.
Thanks very much for your service. Don't let the door hit you in the you-know-what on your way out. We talked with Brandon Judd, who's the president of the National Border Patrol Council, earlier today. He sees a real disparity between the outrage from the left during the Trump administration to what was going on in the border compared to what we see now. Listen to what he told us earlier today.
They're deplorable conditions, and it makes me sick that under the Trump administration, there were politicians that were yelling and screaming about kids in cages, yet we're putting these kids in the same exact facilities, and it's mum. They don't say anything. That lets you know that this is politics. It doesn't matter how these kids are, what the condition these kids are under. It's politics, and that's disgusting.
Sheriff Daniels, just a few seconds left here. Is there a double standard, do you think, here in terms of voicing outrage about what we're seeing on the border?
Exactly. I agree with Mr. Judd. He's a good friend of mine. This is theater. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. On the backs of humanitarian and public safety.
All right. Sheriff Daniels, good to talk to you again. We'll catch up with you again soon.